Welcome to Twilight Tale, a place where history drifts softly into the night. Tonight, allow your thoughts to wander north, beyond the modern world, to a land of cold seas, wooden longships, and flickering firelight beneath endless skies. In this story, we step quietly into the life of a Viking, not in battle, but in the rhythm of an ordinary day. From the hush of early morning in a coastal village to the steady pull of oars across dark waters, to the warmth of home as the day fades into evening. Settle in, slow your breathing, and let the past unfold gently as we explore a day in the life of a Viking, sea warriors of the North. The day begins before the sun fully remembers itself, not as a bright arrival, not as a trumpet of light, but as a faint seam, a pale stitching along the far edge of the world. The fjord lies open like a long, slow breath. Mist moves across it the way a veil moves across a face, soft, drifting, half concealing, half revealing, and beneath that veil, where the water is dark and patient, the longship waits. It waits as if it is sleeping, ribbed with timber, curved like a creature that once belonged to forest and storm. Dew clings to its sides in small beads, like the ocean has already touched it in blessing. The prow, carved with spirals and quiet beasts, leans toward the water as if listening. There is something ancient in its stillness, something that does not hurry. And in that hush, a question rises, not spoken aloud but felt in the bones. What does the sea ask of a person before it grants a path? Beneath the silence, the village begins to stir, almost invisibly. A low shape moves at the edge of a doorway, a dog's shadow slipping through fog like a small guardian of morning. Somewhere, a gull calls once, then stops, as if even the birds are learning to be gentle with the hour. Smoke begins to curl from turf-roofed homes, thin and pale, rising into the mist like a prayer that does not want to be overheard. It is said that dawn is not only a time of day, it is a threshold, a gate made of light and breath, and some gates do not open for those who arrive loudly. We follow one Viking life close and quiet, so close we can hear the small sounds that history often forgets. Bare feet touch cold earth, the ground holds the night's last chill, and the body responds with a slow shiver, not of fear, but of waking. A cloak is drawn tight, wool heavy and familiar, carrying the scent of smoke and salt and yesterday. Breath rises in the air, white and brief, like a word offered to the unseen. The longhouse behind is dim, still holding sleep within its wooden ribs. The world outside is made of gray-blue hush. The sea is there, but softened by fog, as if the water has wrapped itself in linen to move unseen. Where memory fades, the first steps of the day are always the most sacred, not because they are grand, but because they are honest. A hand touches a doorway beam, worn smooth by years of palms. Another hand brushes a carved mark, spiral, star, or rune, etched not for decoration, but for remembering. These marks are small gates of their own, symbols that say, "We were here," symbols that say, "We listened." The longship waits below, near the stones. It is close enough to smell, the sharp resin, the tar's dark sweetness, the faint iron tang where nails hold wood to wood. It rests like an animal that knows it will soon move again, but has no need to pace. Whispers tell us that the sea is never empty, not even when it looks still, not even when it looks kind. The sea has its own memory, deeper than any carved stone. It holds names the way the earth holds bones, quietly, without giving them back easily. And so, the people who live beside it learn to approach with reverence, the way one approaches an elder who has seen too much to be impressed. Morning continues to unfold, not in bursts, but in layers. A rope is checked, coiled like a sleeping serpent, fibers rough as old bark. An oar is lifted, then set down again, as if the body is remembering its own work. Nets hang near a wall, still carrying the faint odor of fish and tide. A folded sail, pale cloth like a wing at rest, waits for the moment wind will fill it with invisible strength. The boat shed is dim, a chamber of tools and shadows. Inside, everything feels ceremonial, not because anyone declares it so, but because repetition done with care becomes ritual. Tar pots, wooden pegs, rope coils, each object has a quiet purpose. Each one has been held so many times it seems to hold the shape of the hands that touched it. Marked by the moon, the longship carries night's last blessing on its skin. And now, marked by dawn, it prepares to wake. There is no shouting, no sharp command cutting through the air. The departure of a longship is not always a spectacle. Sometimes it is simply a slow agreement between human breath and ocean breath. A small offering is brought to the water's edge. Not much, only a crumb of bread, pale against wet stone, or a sip of ale poured from a small cup, dark as the fjord's own mirror. The gesture is simple, almost humble, as if acknowledging that even a strong arm and a brave heart cannot command the whale road. The water receives it without ceremony, a ripple, a widening circle, then stillness again. And yet something changes, because offerings are not only for gods or spirits, sometimes they are for the one who gives them. A way of saying, I do not know what waits beyond the mist, but I will go gently. It is said the sea has hands, not the hands of a person, but the hands of fate, cold, unseen, patient. Hands that can lift a ship like driftwood, hands that can draw a ship under without leaving a scar on the surface. So the offering is made, and the day moves forward as if the world has been quietly acknowledged. We drift, for a moment, into the long ship's details as if into a sacred text. The carved prow, with its spirals and beasts, is not only art, it is a face turned toward the unknown, a protector, a mask, a promise. It watches the fog as if the fog might answer. Its wood is weathered but alive, grain lines running like river paths. Some marks are fresh, cut with care. Some are old, softened by salt. It is a history written in touch. And beneath those carvings, beneath those patterns, the longship feels like a gate between ordinary hours and the wide, hidden world. Because beyond the fjord's mouth lies the open sea, the whale road, where the horizon does not hold steady, where starlight can be both guide and illusion, where cloud and mist can erase direction as easily as breath fogs a window. The first light strengthens, but it remains gentle, as if dawn itself is afraid to break the spell of fog. The village behind grows clearer in small pieces, roof lines, posts, stacked wood. Smoke rises more confidently now, but still without haste. A crow or raven calls somewhere, one low sound like a seal pressed onto the morning. Beneath the silence, the crew gathers. We do not see their faces sharply, not in this dream-like hour. The chapter does not demand bright detail. It lets the human presence remain soft, like shadow and breath. We know they are there by the way an oar shifts, by the way the longship rocks slightly, by the way the world feels poised. Curiosity moves through the scene like a quiet lantern. How many mornings like this have happened and been forgotten? How many times has a longship waited like a sleeping creature? How many times has mist held back the sea until the last possible moment? It is said that the North teaches patience, not as a lesson spoken aloud, but as a reality that cannot be argued with. Winter teaches it, distance teaches it, fog teaches it, and the sea, most of all, teaches it. The mist begins to thin, not all at once, but in trembling bands, like curtains drawn slowly aside. The fjord's mouth appears, darker and wider than the sheltered water behind. The cliffs on either side rise like ancient walls, half seen, their faces blurred by drifting white. Pines stand on those heights like quiet witnesses, their shapes softened, as if made of charcoal and breath. The emotional arc deepens here, turning from curiosity into wonder, because the opening of the fjord feels like the opening of a book whose pages are made of water. It feels like stepping from a known room into a corridor where the lamps are unlit. And yet, alongside wonder, there is melancholy, a soft ache that does not announce itself loudly. So many have left this shore, so many have passed through this gate of mist and never returned. Their names did not vanish with drama, they faded. They became echoes, carried in stories, carved in stones, whispered into smoke, then softened by time, like footprints in snow. The sea does not keep a ledger the way people do. The sea keeps its mysteries in silence. A longship can be a cradle, yes, but it can also be a coffin without walls. It is said that the whale road is beautiful because it does not promise safety. It only promises space. And sometimes in that vast space, a person becomes small enough to be honest. The longship begins to move. Not abruptly, never abruptly in a world like this, but with the subtle shift of weight, the slight rocking that suggests intention. The hull kisses the water accepts it. The longship slides forward like a thought entering a dream. Then the first oar dips, just one at first. Wood meets water with a sound so soft it could be mistaken for silence. A thin line of ripples spreads outward, gentle circles widening as if the fjord itself is breathing in response. The ore rises again, dripping. Each drop falls like a small bright bead, returning to where it came from. And now the question returns, quieter than before, almost tender. What does the sea ask of a person before it grants a path? Perhaps it asks humility. Perhaps it asks patience. Perhaps it asks a willingness to become an echo. The long ship glides farther from the stones. The village behind blurs, swallowed slowly by mist and distance. Smoke becomes a pale thread. Roof lines become suggestions. The shoreline softens, as if memory is already beginning its work. Ahead, the fjord opens. The sea waits beyond it, wide, breathing, veiled. The chapter does not offer certainty. It does not promise safe return. It does not draw a clean line between history and myth, because dawn itself is not a clean line. Dawn is a blending, a mingling of shadow and light. And so we end as we began, within the sacred hush, with water closing behind an oar without complaint, with mist folding back over the wake as if to hide it, with the longship moving into a world of salt and starlight. Perhaps this day will return them home. Perhaps it will carry their names into the ocean's hidden chamber. Perhaps it was never meant to be known. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Morning is born inside the longhouse, cradled in the quiet warmth of embers. The scene unfurls in soft, slow motion, an ember, red as a half-closed eye, nestled under a blanket of ash, glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat that refuses to leave. It is a fragile light, not born of the sun, but of something older, deeper, a light that has survived the night's bitter cold, holding its breath in the shadow of darkness. A hand reaches, slow and sure, stirring the embers. There is no rush here, no urgency, only the tender care of someone who knows that warmth is a memory as much as a gift. The flame stirs, reluctant at first, then begins to bloom gently, as if recalling the world with every flicker of red and orange. And with the first sigh of warmth, the question rises, quiet and reverent. How can a small flame stand against a world of frost and wind? In this small space, within the longhouse's thick wooden walls, warmth is sacred. It is not taken for granted, for outside the world remains shrouded in chill, with winds that bite the skin and ice that grips the earth. Yet here, within the embrace of the hearth, warmth flows like an ancient promise, a promise of home, of protection, of belonging. The flicker of the flame is soft, yet it holds the power of all the ancestors who have come before, whose spirits might drift through the smoke, pausing in quiet reverence. The fire here is not just fire, it is memory made tangible, a connection to the past that hums low in the bones. As the warmth spreads, we move through the soft rhythms of the morning. The water is warmed on the stone hearth, the steam rising like breath from a spirit. The bread is turned on a flat stone, its surface as ancient as the hearth itself, warming in the glow, crackling slightly as it cooks. The smell fills the air, simple yet sacred, A hand passes a length of wool between the fingers, drawing thread with steady patience, the fibers moving like a memory unfolding, like the land itself weaving its story into cloth. Every motion is deliberate, almost meditative. Every act feels like a prayer to the day that is beginning, a slow, sacred offering to the world that stands just outside the door. And all around, the silence holds its place, soft and deep. The longhouse breathes quietly, the weight of its age resting in every beam, every post. The carved wooden beams overhead watch silently, their shapes worn smooth by years of smoke and the stories passed beneath them. The walls hold whispers, whispers of warriors who once stood here, of battles fought and lost, of family born and buried. Yet in this moment there is no mention of war, no shout of conquest. In this sacred space there is only tenderness, only quiet. The chapter deepens, slowly unfolding into the quiet contradiction of this morning. These are sea warriors, strong and fierce, known for their travels across vast waters, where the winds howl and the waves rise high. And yet their day begins not with the sharpening of weapons or the call to arms, but with the gentle tending of hearth and home. They feed their children with hands that have held swords. They mend clothes with thread that has known the weight of battle. They share the first bite of food of the day as if it were a vow, an unspoken promise to one another, to their families, to the land itself. The hearth, in its stillness and warmth, becomes a sacred altar, a place where ancestors might lean close, drawn in by the drift of pine smoke and the steady rhythm of life. Here, in this quiet, there is a deep sense of reverence. The hearth holds not only fire, but memory. It holds the hearts of those who came before, the ones whose hands first carved these walls, whose footsteps once moved through this earth. And it holds the soft murmur of those still living, each day an offering, each task an act of love and care. The sacredness of the hearth is clear in the way the family moves around it. Each gesture is careful, as if the very act of sustaining life requires respect, requires time. The fire, once revived, now steadies into a calm glow, casting soft shadows against the wooden beams. The room feels full of life, yet still deeply serene, as if this place, this moment, is a threshold, a gate that only opens for those who approach with care. Outside, the light begins to shift. The first rays of the sun break through the heavy clouds, spilling gold across the earth. The frost on the ground begins to melt slowly, the world beyond the longhouse stirring from its frozen slumber. But here, in the warmth of the hearth, the morning moves slowly, unhurried. The day waits patiently just outside the door, like an unopened letter, waiting to be read. The work that lies beyond the threshold will come, but it will come only when the time is right, when the warmth of the hearth has seeped into the bones, when the spirit has been nourished by the simple rituals of the morning. And yet, despite the gentle rhythm of the morning, there is a quiet melancholy in the air. The day outside, the world beyond the hearth, holds its own mysteries, its own challenges. It is said that the warriors who live here, whose hands have shaped the world with iron and fire, must step outside the warmth of the longhouse and into a world of wind and frost. But for now, for this moment, they are held within the embrace of the hearth, their feet still warm on the stone floor, their hearts still wrapped in the quiet rhythms of home. The morning is an offering, a reminder that strength is not only found in the clash of swords, but in the soft, steady art of keeping warmth alive. In the final reflection, the hearth steadies once more into calm. The flames settle into a quiet glow, their light softening the edges of the room. The space around the hearth feels sacred now, a quiet sanctuary from the cold, a place of pause before the world outside calls. The fire burns low, its warmth a steady presence, as if the hearth itself knows that its purpose is not only to keep the cold at bay, but to hold the heart. Perhaps the truest strength of the North was never found in iron, never in the blade of the sword, but in the simple, quiet art of keeping warmth alive. It is in the small things, the careful turning of bread, the slow drawing of thread, the tender offering of warmth, that strength is truly measured. For in a world that can turn cold and unforgiving, the hearth remains a constant, a symbol of resilience, of care, of love, of the way the smallest flame can push back against the darkest night. And as the morning stretches on, the flame continues to glow, steady and calm, beneath the thick beams of the longhouse. The room holds its breath, the hearth holds its warmth, and outside the world remains distant, blurred by frost and mist. The work of the day will come as it always does, but for now the hearth holds the night's last breath, offering its warmth in silence, in reverence, in peace. Perhaps, in the end, the hearth was never just a source of warmth. Perhaps it was always something deeper, a place where memory lives, where love is woven into the fabric of everyday life, and where the simplest acts of care carry with them the truest strength of all. And as the flyer flickers low, the world outside remains hushed, as if waiting for the next moment to unfold. The chapter fades gently into silence. Some stories live on only in the quiet spaces, in the tender moments of stillness and warmth, where the world breathes deeply and all is held for a while, just as it was meant to be. The morning's calm gathers around a wooden board, worn smooth and pale as bone, cradled by the soft light of dawn. The edges are softened, the surface marked by countless moments, faint, deliberate carvings etched deep in the wood. Among these marks are tiny stars, barely visible at first, like a secret language known only to the hand that carved them. They lie near the edge, small and distant, as though the wood itself carries some ancient memory of the night sky. The question lingers, almost a whisper, hanging in the space between waking and sleep. Why place starlight where bread is born? The board sits in quiet reverence, holding the weight of the question in its stillness. Around it, the world begins to wake. A soft rhythm fills the room, as flour, pale and soft, drifts like dust from a distant memory, falling gently onto the wood. Fingers move slowly, pressing and folding the dough with the unhurried care of someone who understands the sacredness of this act. Each press, each fold is a prayer, a slow offering of labor and love, whispered to the gods of hearth and harvest. The scent of grain rises, gentle and sure, like a lullaby that wraps the room with warmth. Yet, as the dough begins to take shape, the mind drifts, drawn to the marks on the board, the tiny stars, carved with purpose, with intention. They are not simply decoration, not mere adornment on the surface. They are a message, a blessing, a secret. Whispers tell us that these markings were not made in haste. They were placed there by hands that knew the power of symbols, the power of small things done with great care. These stars, faint yet unyielding, carry the weight of belief, belief that in every loaf of bread there is more than just sustenance. There is a prayer, a blessing meant to keep hunger away, to invite good weather, to call the sun and rain to the fields beyond the fjord. Beneath the silence of the household, a mystery deepens. This board, this simple piece of wood, is more than a surface for kneading bread. It is a relic, a touchstone of ancient faith. The bread that rises on it is not just food for the body. It is a sacred offering to the family, to the earth, to the gods who watch from the stars. The board becomes a keeper of memory, touched by countless hands, each one passing it along through the seasons, hands that have felt the cold of winter and the warmth of summer, hands that have shared food around a fire, hands that have offered the first bite to ancestors long gone. And in the quiet, the board tells a story of a world that is both small and vast. These hands, these families who gather in the soft light of morning, are not only concerned with the cycles of hunger and nourishment, they are also concerned with the cycles of the stars. They know that the land they till, the grain they harvest, is connected to something larger than themselves, something far beyond the horizon. They know that their lives are measured not by the gold they may seek in distant lands, but by the simple loaves they share around the fire. The small, humble meal becomes a sacred bond, a link between the earth and the heavens. Bread is not just bread, it is a promise kept, a quiet vow to sustain life. The chapter deepens further, sinking into the sacred context of this daily ritual. The bread, shaped with unhurried hands, is not merely nourishment for the body, it is an offering to the rhythm of the world. The board, too, becomes a symbol, an object imbued with layers of meaning. The marks carved into it, the stars pressed into its surface, are a quiet reminder that there is more at play in life than we can see. Beneath the simplicity of the act, there is an ancient belief that in sharing bread, the people share their lives, their hopes and prayers with the gods. The bread becomes a reflection of the soul, a humble symbol of faith and trust passed from one hand to the next. And so the rituals continue, slow, deliberate, without hurry. The dough rises, soft and warm. Steam rises from the oven, curling like tendrils of smoke, filling the room with the earthy scent of grain and fire. The sunlight enters the room like a thin ribbon of gold, cutting through the shadows and bathing the wooden beams in a gentle glow. There is no rush here, no loud noise or hurry. The longhouse breathes with the slow rhythm of the day, the quiet hum of a household listening to itself, listening to the pulse of the world. The mystery deepens in the silence, in the way time seems to stretch, to fold in on itself. The the stars, carved in the wood, remain unchanged by the passing of seasons, untouched by the hands that have come and gone. They endure in their stillness, a reminder that some things, some truths, are older than the passing of time. Perhaps the stars on the breadboard are a reflection of this eternal cycle, an echo of the stars above, whose light reaches the earth in quiet whispers, just as the bread rises in the warmth of the hearth. They are symbols, yes, but they are also a memory of things seen and unseen, of life and death, of hunger and feast. As the bread is pulled from the oven, golden and warm, the chapter approaches its gentle close. The loaf is broken, torn into pieces and passed from hand to hand, the first bite shared between those gathered. The warmth of the bread lingers, filling the space with a quiet satisfaction, a calm certainty that sustenance has been provided. The stars remain on the board untouched as they have always been. Perhaps they too are waiting for morning to notice them, to remember the quiet power they hold. The chapter ends not with resolution, but with a soft reflection. The bread has been shared, the stars have been carved, and the morning continues its slow, deliberate unfolding. Perhaps the sky was never far away, only pressed into wood, waiting for the light of the sun to reach it, waiting for the hands of the living to notice. And in that noticing, and that quiet act of reverence, something sacred is made whole. The chapter fades into the quiet. The breadboard rests beneath the stars, the marks unchanged by time. The hearth's warmth lingers, soft as a lullaby, and the day moves forward, as it always does, in the steady rhythm of simple things done with great care. The story, like the bread, is passed from hand to hand, and in the passing it becomes a part of something larger, something eternal. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, this quiet ritual, but it lives on nonetheless, woven into the fabric of each day, pressed into the wood, waiting for morning to notice. And perhaps, in that noticing, we too will find the stars we seek, not in the sky, but in the simplest of things, the bread we share, the hands that knead, the quiet rituals that bind us to the earth and to the stars above. Mid-morning breathes through the village, where the stillness of the day is broken only by the quiet rhythm of life, a humble pulse of the land carried in the simple exchanges that weave the fabric of their world. Among these movements, there is one that catches the eye, though it is small and unnoticed by many. Silver, cool and smooth, catches the morning light, a glint on the wrist like the faint gleam of a distant moon. It is not the light itself that speaks, but the weight of what it holds, something old, something sacred, something unspoken. An arm ring, its metal delicate in its simplicity, rests there. It does not clink, does not demand attention, yet it carries with it a question, suspended in the air. When a promise is worn, does it become truer or heavier? The arm ring's quiet shine brings us to the heart of this moment, a small exchange between two hands. It is the passing of something more than silver. There is a fish offered, a length of cloth unfurled, and a measure of silver weighed in the palm, a simple trade, yet one that moves with a kind of sacred weight. There is no hurry. The air is filled with the gentlest silence, the rhythm of touch, the slow meeting of hands that seems to echo through the space between them. These are not just objects changing hands, these are promises too, silent exchanges that hold the weight of kinship and loyalty, of a bond that does not need words to be understood. The arm ring itself, resting on the wrist like a quiet sentinel, speaks of something older than wealth. It is not simply a token of value, it is memory, it is history. It is the binding force that holds the village together, worn not for its silver sheen, but for the sacred trust it carries. As the arm ring catches the light again, we begin to trace its story, following the faint echoes of its journey. The silver itself is older than this village, older than these hands that wear it. It is the remnant of far-off places, melted and reshaped, a fragment of something that once belonged to another, somewhere distant and unknown. It is said that silver has traveled farther than the feet of those who wear it, passed through many hands, spoken in many tongues. It is a vessel of stories, each mark in its surface a sign of where it has been, of what it has witnessed. The weight of it deepens as we think on this. How many prayers have been whispered into this metal? How many oaths have been made by the flickering light of a fire? The silver seems to hold within it the echo of distant places, far lands where the horizon touches the sea, where salt and wind shape both man and metal. How many journeys sleep inside this small ring of silver? How many hands have held it, felt its weight and warmth, only to let it pass on, to carry something else into the world? There is a subtle contradiction here, beneath the calm of this trade. The arm ring is a gift, but it is also a chain. A gift of loyalty, yes, but also a reminder of the burden of that loyalty. It is a symbol of peace, but also a symbol of hunger, of need, of the fragile thread that ties one person to another. These are not simple exchanges of goods, they are exchanges of something deeper, something harder to hold. The trade continues, slow and steady. Words are murmured not for the sake of commerce, but for the sake of respect. A nod seals the agreement, a small gesture, but one that holds more weight than any spoken word could carry. The silver passes gently from hand to hand, its journey continuing, its memory deepening with each exchange. The arm ring rests against the skin, warm now, as though it has been waiting to be worn, to fulfill its purpose in the life of the one who carries it. And yet, as the trade concludes, there remains a lingering silence. The arm ring continues to rest there, unnoticed by many, its weight still heavy despite its delicate form. The promise it carries is not easily measured. It is not seen in the shine of the metal, nor in the value of the goods it has exchanged. The promise is not something that can be written or spoken. It is something that lives in the space between breaths, in the quiet understanding shared by those who wear it. In this silence, the truth becomes clear. The most binding oaths are those that are never spoken aloud. They are the ones carried through each day, tucked away beneath the pulse of the skin, hidden in the quiet rhythm of life. The arm ring is a reminder of this, a promise unbroken, an oath that moves with the body, flowing from one moment to the next without the need for words. It is a symbol of loyalty that does not ask for recognition. It is there, always, like the pulse of the earth itself, steady, unyielding, a quiet force that shapes everything in its path. And so the chapter fades, leaving the arm ring to rest against the skin, its silver still warm, its promise still unspoken. The exchange has passed, but the weight of it remains. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, this quiet oath. Perhaps it was meant to stay hidden, woven into the fabric of everyday life, carried from one day to the next without a sound. In the end, the arm ring becomes something more than silver. It becomes a part of the body itself, a part of the pulse, the rhythm that ties one to another, that moves through the veins like blood, like memory. Some promises are never meant to be spoken aloud. They are only carried, like silver against the pulse, like whispers in the quiet hours of the morning. And perhaps, in the stillness, that is enough. Late morning stretches its limbs across the land, moving with the kind of quiet purpose that speaks more of ancient rhythms than the sharp tick of time. The air hums softly, the sky is open, and the world feels at once still and alive. Our Viking walks a familiar path, the earth beneath his feet solid but yielding, the grass bending gently in the wind like something that knows the way and the coming of each day. There are stones here, scattered, some half buried in the earth, their surfaces worn by years of weather and touch. They rest patiently, as if awaiting something unseen, something long forgotten, patient as old thoughts that never quite fade. For a long moment there is only silence, the kind that fills the space between breaths. The question lingers in the air, unanswered, but not unheard. Perhaps it is the stone itself that holds the answer, or perhaps, like the wind in the grass, it is something that cannot be grasped, only felt. The runes, carved deep into the stone, seem to hold two stories. Some speak clearly of kin and deeds, of who lived and what was done, names that were given to men and women, to gods and ancestors. Yet others seem to hold something else, something veiled, something hidden beneath the surface. A soft mystery unfolds. There is something about the way the lines twist together, something about the way the symbols seem to speak with two voices, one spoken aloud, the other a murmur, only half heard. It is as if the stone itself holds two truths, one that can be seen and another that must be felt, as if a name, a history, was meant to be both revealed and kept in shadow. The deeper meaning, the hidden story, sits there, unspoken, waiting. Whispers tell us that some stones, when touched, reveal their secrets. Others, though, hold them close, guarding them for those who can listen without needing to hear. There, beneath the carving, beneath the stone's surface, lies something ancient, something that was meant to be carried beyond words, beyond names. And in this quiet moment, we understand that some stories, some truths, are never fully told. Perhaps this is the gift of the runestone, to hold, without judgment, what the world cannot. It is a keeper, not of secrets, but of sacred silences. The stone stands at a crossroads, not just of paths, but of worlds. It is a boundary between the living and the dead, between the breath of the present and the echoes of the past. There, on the edge of the road, it watches as travelers pass by, as they move from one place to the next. The living walk on, their feet pressing against the earth, unaware of the stone's quiet vigil. And yet it holds them all, each step, each word, each breath, woven into the very stone that stands so still. It is a silent witness to the world, its carved memory stretching back beyond the reach of time. The chapter deepens as we explore the sacred context of the stone's place. Runes, once symbols that felt charged, their meanings wrapped in the power of the earth, are now symbols of something more, the quiet offering of memory. These markings were never meant to be merely decorative. They were once meant to bless, to warn, to bind, and to protect. And in this quiet place, in the space between worlds, the stone itself becomes a bridge, a place where the earth speaks and the stars listen. As the morning light stretches, we notice a soft contradiction that lingers here. The stone bears the marks of an older faith, marks from a time before the coming of new ways, before the cross appeared in the northern lands. And yet, just beside those ancient signs, there is another mark, a faint trace of a cross, barely visible against the stone's surface. The stone, like the land itself, carries layers of belief, one resting quietly over the other, like veils upon veils, time upon time. The cross, so different from the spiral runes carved beside it, seems almost foreign, but in its presence there is something harmonious, as though these marks have always belonged together. Perhaps they always have, woven into the landscape like threads of memory, joining old faiths and new, without breaking the silence between them. The air around the stone is still, but for a moment there is movement. A raven calls once, its voice echoing through the quiet, a sound that stirs the air like the soft rustling of pages in an ancient scroll. And then, just as quickly, the silence returns. The raven's call fades like the last notes of a song long forgotten, and all that remains is the stillness, the quiet hum of a world held between breaths. In the final reflection, we see the traveler turning away, leaving the stone to its watch. There is no need to linger, no need to pause longer. The stone will remain, standing by the road, keeping its two stories, its two truths in quiet reverence. The traveler continues on, but the stone stays behind, its gaze turned toward the world it watches without speaking. Perhaps this is the great gift of the stone, the ability to hold time without being burdened by it. Perhaps it was never meant to be understood, only to be noticed in passing, as a quiet companion along the way. It holds its secrets, not in the words that are carved on its surface, but in the spaces between those words. Perhaps, in the end, history is not one story, but many, many whispers pressed into rock, waiting for gentle eyes to notice, waiting for those who walk by to feel the weight of time without asking for it. The stone remains where it is, as it always has, standing guard in silence, and as the traveler walks away, the morning light begins to shift, casting a soft shadow over the stone, an echo of the past, carried forward just for a moment, and then, like the wind across the grass, it is gone, leaving only the quiet, the memory, and the space between the stories. Afternoon settles in softly, as if it too must pause to take its breath. The warmth of the day lingers in the air, carrying with it the scent of earth and resin, a fragrance that speaks of work both ancient and essential. It is in this quiet, fragrant space that we find the boat shed, a place not marked by grandeur, but by the slow, steady rhythm of labor. The dim light filters through the cracks in the walls, casting long shadows on planks that rest like sleeping ribs. These boards, some rough, others smooth, all marked by time, sit in patient silence, waiting for the hands that will shape them into something more. The question rises, faintly, as if it too is part of the air. How does a tree become a vessel that can cross the world? The answer is not spoken aloud, for the question is not one of knowledge, but of reverence. The boat shed holds its mystery in the quiet hum of the space, in the slow, deliberate motions of the work. Here, beneath the roof that smells of pine and resin, timber becomes something sacred. The transformation is subtle, almost unnoticed, a shift in purpose, a quiet alchemy between the wood and the hands that will shape it. The scene moves slowly, unfolding with care. The warmth of tar is felt as it is warmed over the fire, its thick, rich scent filling the space. Rope is checked with soft, practiced hands, its fibers slipping between fingers, strong yet pliable, ready to be tied to the vessel's heart. Nails are counted, each one a small promise, each one a connection to the whole. A sail, white as the wings of a seabird, lies folded with care, waiting like a sleeping creature, ready to stretch into the wind. The tools are laid out with reverence, simple, worn, but powerful in their purpose. A blade with a curved edge, its steel gleaming faintly in the dim light. A mallet, its handle smooth from years of use, its head worn by countless knocks against wood. Each tool feels like an extension of memory, tools that have shaped not only the ship, but the men and women who have worked them, tools that carry echoes of countless journeys made, storms weathered, and stories told by firelight. The long ship stands in the corner, its shape quiet and sure, a living craft in the making. It is present here, but not in spectacle. There is no fanfare in this work, no dramatic flourishes. The ship, with its curved hull and sweeping prow, seems to breathe with the rhythm of the hands that tend it. It is not a thing to be marveled at. It is a thing to be understood, to be lived with. It is not merely wood and iron. It is a vessel of memory, a vessel of spirit. The craft waits in silence, as though it knows the journey ahead is not simply one of distance, but of fate. The mystery deepens here in the quiet understanding of the long ship's grace. How is it that such slender shapes, planks bound together by rope and iron, can carry men across the vastness of the sea? How is it that they can stand against the fury of storms, cut through the fog, glide over the open sea with such confidence? The longship is not just a boat, it is an extension of the sea itself, an embodiment of the balance between land and water. It is a place where the sacredness of the world meets the practicality of survival. The ship's hull, worn smooth by the water's caress, seems to echo with the pulse of the ocean. Some, when they touch the hull, do so as though greeting a spirit, a sacred presence, rather than a vessel of wood and nails. The work continues, slow and meditative. The mallet's steady rhythm fills the air like a heartbeat, each strike speaking in the language of the wood, each strike part of a conversation between the hands and the craft. There is no rush here, no urgency. The sea is patient, as is the wood. There is no need to speak loudly, no need to break the silence. Some work in near silence, as though the presence of the craft demands it. To speak too loudly, to move too quickly, would be to disturb the hidden balance between sea and timber. The ship is a thing of quiet reverence, a thing that knows its own nature, that knows its place in the world. There is something sacred about this space, this moment, this labor. The boat shed itself becomes a kind of temple, not of stone, but of wood, of tar, of salt and sea. The light is soft, dim, but it casts a golden glow over the tools, over the ship, over the hands that shape them. Each motion is an offering, each movement an acknowledgement of the spirits of the wood, the water, the air. The silence between actions feels like a prayer for the ship, for the journey ahead, for the safe passage through unknown waters. The emotional arc of this scene flows from curiosity into awe. The hands, steady and patient, have no need to hurry, for they know the ship will not be ready until it is ready. The craft does not demand haste, it demands understanding. In the quiet space of the boat shed, the Viking knows that the journey the ship will undertake is not merely one of distance, but of spirit. To launch a longship is to launch something far greater than just wood and men. It is to launch a story, a journey that connects the living to the dead, the known to the unknown, the earth to the sea. And in this moment, surrounded by the tools of creation, there is a deep, calming humility before the craft. It is not the Viking who shapes the ship, it is the ship that shapes the Viking. The chapter moves towards its gentle close. The work is done, or at least paused, for the ship is now ready, its hull waiting, its ropes tied, its sail folded like the wings of a bird poised for flight. The tar smells rich and earthy, mingling with the scent of salt and sea, of wood and resin. The ship rests now, its timbers breathing in the warmth, in the stillness, as though it knows that soon it will feel the cool kiss of water beneath its hull. But for now, it rests in this quiet space, held by the hands that have shaped it, by the air that has surrounded it, by the earth that has sustained it. In the final reflection, the Viking steps away from the ship, leaving it to its quiet watch. The boat shed holds its breath, the tools lie still, and the longship, with its graceful lines and quiet strength, stands ready for the journey ahead. Perhaps the sea will decide the outcome of this journey, but the hands that built the ship, quiet, patient, unhurried, will decide whether the sea is met with respect, whether it is honored with a gentle, patient hand. And as the longship waits, as the boat shed holds its memory, the chapter ends in sacred uncertainty. Perhaps the sea will take the ship where it will, or perhaps it is the ship that will guide the sea. The mystery of the journey remains as it always has, quiet, sacred, held in the space between earth and water, between hands and wood. Perhaps the sea decides the outcome, but the ship's true journey begins long before it touches the water. Perhaps the most profound voyages are those that begin in silence, in patience, and in the quiet labor of love. And with that, the chapter fades into quiet reflection, like the last gentle breath of a long ship, its journey only just beginning. Mid-afternoon light grows uncertain. The world feels held between breaths, suspended in that fragile moment when the sun begins to slide behind the clouds. A soft haze of gray wool drifts across the sky, softening the edges of the world, muting the color, blending everything into a quiet wash of indistinct shapes. The horizon, once a clear line that separated sea from sky, begins to fade into the soft blur of mist. And beneath this uncertain light, a question rises as gently as the wind. How do you find direction when the sky refuses to speak plainly? The answer is not immediate. It is not something to be understood with haste or with certainty. It is a question that requires patience, a quiet understanding that some truths, some directions, are not given. They must be found in the stillness, in the silence that fills the space between clouds and sea. We step onto the shore with our Viking and his crew, the familiar sound of the waves breaking softly against the rocks beneath our feet. The salt air is thick with the taste of the sea, carrying with it the promise of both adventure and uncertainty. And as the crew moves forward, one of them draws a small object from the depths of their cloak, a simple thing, pale in the dimming light, almost nothing at all. It rests in the palm like a secret, a quiet mystery. This is the sunstone, or perhaps a marked disc used to read the world when the sun is hidden, when the sky refuses to speak plainly. The stone is not much to look at, small, unassuming, pale against the muted colors of the shore. Yet in its simplicity it holds something sacred. It is said that this small, quiet object can guide the way when the sky itself is reluctant to reveal its truth. But the chapter does not demand that we understand the stone's full purpose. It does not insist on certainty. Instead, it dwells in the mystery of it, in the quiet, patient navigation of old ways, how the eyes of the sailors could learn to read what was barely there, how they could find the hidden path in a world that seemed to shift with every breath of wind, every changing cloud. We move into the depths of this mystery, stepping closer to the stone, and begin to feel its layers. Starlight from past nights lingers in its surface, not visible to the naked eye, but felt like an echo carried in the bones, like a memory of the night sky that once guided the way. The wind, cool against the skin, brushes the face like a quiet counsel, a suggestion of the path ahead, a breath from the world itself. The seabirds fly overhead, their calls drifting on the wind, but it is not the sound that matters. It is the way they move, their flight, their direction, the way they drift with purpose, yet without certainty, like an offering to the shifting sky. There is a sacred undertone to this listening, to this knowing without knowing. It is not simply the body that navigates the sea, but the soul. The stone, the wind, the birds, each of them becomes a part of the prayer, a part of the devotion. For direction is not just a matter of maps and tools, it is a matter of faith. The sailor's eyes are trained to read the signs, but the real work lies in the willingness to trust them, to trust the feeling of wind on the cheek as much as the position of the stars, to trust the way the sea feels beneath the hull, even when the path ahead is unclear. The contradiction hums softly beneath it all. These are bold voyagers, men and women who dare to sail across vast, uncharted waters, whose courage carries them into the unknown. And yet, their boldness is not born of arrogance or defiance. It is born of humility, the quiet humility of one who knows that no matter how far they may sail, no matter how many winds they may command, there is always something larger than them in this world: the sea, the sky, the unknown. Their courage does not come from the tools they carry, nor the strength of their hands. It comes from the respect they have for what they cannot see, for the mystery that lies beyond the horizon. The pacing of the scene remains gentle, slow, meditative. The crew does not rush. They move with a quiet care, as if every moment, every small movement holds weight. Hands turn the stone slowly, pausing, then turning again, as if they are asking the stone what it knows, what it feels. There is no hurry in their work. The stone is not a tool to be hurried. It is a quiet guide, a companion on this uncertain journey. A pause is taken to watch the water's color shift with the changing light, deepening into blue, then softening into gray. The world holds its breath just as they do. A soft exchange of glances passes between them, but no loud words are spoken, no commands, no urgent demands, only the quiet understanding that the world must be listened to, that sometimes the answers come not from force, but from patience. The sea, in all its vastness, becomes a wide, breathing chamber, a space where certainty is rare and trust is everything. It is here, in this great open world, where the Viking and his crew must place their trust, not in the map, nor in the stone, but in the sea itself. They know that the ocean will not offer answers with clarity or certainty. It will offer only the journey, the path through fog and mist. And in that journey, they must trust. Trust the pull of the wind, trust the rhythm of the waves, trust that even when the path seems hidden, it is still there, waiting to be felt. In the final reflection, the stone is lowered, its work done for now. The crew stands still for a moment, looking out over the water, each lost in their thoughts. Perhaps they feel the weight of the unknown more than they feel the stone itself. Perhaps the stone, too, is only a reminder to keep moving forward, to keep trusting the journey, even when the way ahead seems shrouded in mist. And in that quiet moment, there is a sense of sacred uncertainty. The true compass of their journey, of all journeys, is not the object they hold in their hands, nor the tools they carry with them. The true compass is the calm courage to move forward, to trust the rhythm of the world, to listen to what is silent and unseen. Perhaps the sea decides the outcome, but it is the hands, the hearts, the trust of those who sail who must decide whether they will meet the sea with respect. Perhaps the truest compass is not an object at all, but the quiet faith that guides them through fog and storm, the quiet belief that even when the world grows dim, the path is still there, waiting, holding space for those who dare to listen. The chapter ends as the day slips gently into dusk. The crew moves quietly back toward their ship, the stone now resting in the shadows, ready to be used again when the time comes. And though the path ahead remains uncertain, they know this, that they are ready, ready for whatever the sea, the sky, or the wind may bring, ready to trust the journey, unfolding step by step into the mystery. And perhaps, in the end, that is all anyone needs to find their way. As the afternoon deepens and the light begins its slow retreat into the arms of dusk, the road winds its way through the land, touching places where the earth lies heavy with forgotten secrets. The path narrows, the familiar noise of footsteps softened by the earth's embrace, until it leads to a low, quiet place where the ground holds dark water. Here, the land gives way to a bog, a still, silent pool that reflects the sky like a black mirror. It is as though the earth itself has paused, holding its breath, waiting. The surface of the bog is untouched, unbroken. Not even the faintest ripple disturbs the perfect reflection of the gray clouds above, drifting lazily in their endless sky. And as the Viking pauses at the edge of this strange and sacred place, the question rises, not as a voice, but as a feeling, a soft whisper carried on the wind. What does the ground keep when people leave gifts and walk away? The question hangs in the air, as still as the water before him. It is not a question meant to be answered, but felt, not a question of logic, but one of reverence. For there is something ancient in this place, something older than time, older than words. This bog, with its deep, black surface, is not simply earth and water. It is a keeper of offerings, of sacrifices made long before this Viking's time. This is no simple pond. It is a place where the boundary between the seen and the unseen is thin, a place where the earth remembers what the sky forgets. The Viking does not pause to perform a grand ritual. There is no ceremonial gesture or prayer spoken aloud. Instead, he simply acknowledges the presence of something ancient, something that has seen the passing of countless seasons, heard the whispers of many voices, and held countless offerings beneath its still surface. His gaze lingers for a moment, soft and respectful, as if the land itself were to speak. In this place, the land is not silent. It speaks in the silence of what is buried, in the quiet murmur of what lies below the surface, gifts left by hands that sought favor or understanding from forces greater than themselves. Metal and ornaments, simple offerings surrendered to the mud, rest there, as if the bog itself were a sacred gate, a threshold between worlds. The mystery deepens in the quiet contemplation of these objects, small trinkets perhaps, but not meaningless. They are more than objects. They are symbols, gestures of devotion, offerings made in the hope of some unseen hand reaching down, taking what was given. We explore the spiritual context of these offerings, not in loud declarations, but in soft tones, tones that seem to come from the earth itself, from the space between breath and silence. The bog is a threshold, a place where worlds feel close, where the boundary between the living and the dead is not so clearly drawn. It is said that the unseen listen more carefully in such places, as though the very air carries the weight of ancient promises, ancient pacts. Perhaps the spirits of the earth watch over these offerings, keeping them in the quiet depths, where time does not reach, where words do not tread. But beneath this reverence, there lies a gentle contradiction, one that touches the heart of the mystery. Why give wealth to darkness? Why surrender precious things to the cold, still mud, when hunger and hardship are never far from the hearts of those who walk the earth? It is a question of logic, of survival, one that asks why we would give up what we hold dear when we may never see it again. Yet there is something in this act that transcends logic. Perhaps it is not about the exchange of goods at all, but the quiet belief in something greater, something that cannot be argued with. It is a belief older than the words we use, older than the logic we cling to. It is an agreement with forces that cannot be seen, with the ebb and flow of the earth, the sea, the sky. The Viking stands, the soft rush of the wind through the reeds filling the air, the distant hum of insects weaving their quiet song in the background. The water before him holds its mirror without ripple. The surface remains still, waiting, as if the bog itself is listening. It is a place of profound stillness, and in that stillness there is a sense of sacredness that cannot be named. The Viking, with his steady gaze, understands this. He understands that some things, some acts, are not meant to be understood fully, only to be experienced, to be felt in the depths of the soul. The offering, though it may seem small, is an act of faith, an acknowledgement of the forces that shape the world, the things that cannot be seen but are always present. The emotional arc of this moment moves from curiosity to wonder. It is wonder not at the bog itself, but at the act of offering, at the gesture of devotion, at the quiet humility that lies in surrender. To release something precious with no guarantee of return, no promise of reward, is an act of courage, but it is also an act of hope. Hope moving like starlight behind cloud, a quiet belief that what is given, even if it is never returned, is not lost. It is a quiet understanding that some things are too great to be owned, too sacred to be controlled. They must simply be given. And as the Viking steps away from the edge of the bog, the question lingers in the air, unanswered but fully present. Perhaps the earth remembers every offering, not as possession, but as promise, buried deep where words cannot reach. The bog remains, still and full, its surface holding the quiet echoes of what has been surrendered, of what has been given to the land. It is a place that holds memory, not in the form of stories told, but in the silence of what has been left behind. The Viking walks away, his steps soft on the earth, the path before him now a little clearer, though still hidden beneath the mist of the evening. The bog, quiet and full, watches him leave, its depths holding secrets that will never be fully understood. The chapter fades with the quiet understanding that some things, some truths, are meant to remain buried, held by the earth where they cannot be spoken, where they cannot be touched by human hands. Perhaps it was never meant to be found, this understanding. Perhaps it was meant to be felt only in the silence, in the waiting, in the trust that the earth remembers, even when we do not. And as the Viking continues his journey, the bog remains, a mirror of the sky, a keeper of promises, a place where silence holds the deepest truth. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. As dusk settles over the village, a soft hush comes with the cooling air. The earth exhales gently, the heat of the day held now only in the last golden threads of light that stretch across the sky. Above, the heavens soften into a gradient of dusky blue where the day's light lingers but the night begins to whisper its approach. In this still moment, a raven sits perched high upon the roof beam, its feathers glistening as the fading sun touches them, turning them the color of ink kissed by gold. There it sits in quiet watchfulness, its dark eyes reflecting the slow change of time. The question arrives as a soft whisper, like the rustling of feathers. Does the raven bring messages, or does it simply remind us that we are watched by the sky? It is a question not to be answered outright, but to be felt in the quiet of the evening, in the deepening shadow of the village. The raven, with its black wings and sharp gaze, is both a messenger and a witness, both a bringer of omens and a simple reminder of the ever-watchful sky. Our Viking returns homeward, his movements slow but steady, the rhythm of the day now giving way to the tiredness that settles into his shoulders like an old friend. The tools he used through the day are put away with care, the salt of the sea still faintly clinging to his sleeves. His steps are soft, leaving quiet prints in the dust, the world around him now cloaked in the soft twilight of the evening. The air is cool now, the earth beneath his feet firm and grounding. Above him, the ravens pass, their dark wings cutting through the sky like slow punctuation marks in the fading blue. Each beat of their wings carries the weight of something ancient, something known by the land and sky, but untold by words. They are not rushing to a destination, they are simply passing through the spaces between worlds, moving with the certainty of those who have always known the way. Their flight is a quiet language, a message carried on the wind, but it is not meant for the ears of men. It is meant for the sky, for the earth, for something deeper. And in this moment, our Viking pauses, his gaze turning upward, following the raven's slow flight across the sky. The village around him breathes with the same quiet anticipation, the stillness in the air carrying the weight of something unspoken. There is a sacredness to this pause, to this observation, as though the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to be revealed. The chapter deepens as we explore the sacred context without haste. The ravens, Odin's own messengers, are more than birds. They are symbols of thought and memory, of knowledge passed through wing beats and whispered through the air. Thought itself drifts above the world like these ravens, flying over the land, watching, listening, carrying the weight of the past and the whispers of fate. The ravens are not mere creatures of flesh and bone. They are the very embodiment of mind, of recollection, of memory, the keepers of the stories that lie beneath the surface of the world. There is a quiet reverence in this understanding, a belief that the world itself is alive with meaning. The land is not simply soil and stone. It is filled with the echoes of the past, with the stories of those who have walked before, with the whispers of gods and spirits who still watch over the living. The ravens carry these whispers. They are not messengers of doom or hope, but of remembrance, reminding us that the land, the sky, and the unseen worlds around us are always present, always listening. A calm contradiction begins to unfold. These people, our Viking and his kin, are strong and skilled, capable of shaping the world around them with their hands and their will. They trust their strength, their skill, their craft, and yet they also listen for signs, for omens in the flight of birds, in the way the wind moves, in the sudden silences that fall over the land like a hush. They trust their own abilities, yes, but they also trust the signs, the subtle movements of the world around them that speak without words. The mood of the scene remains slow and meditative, as if time itself has softened, allowing each moment to unfold with quiet grace. A child, small and innocent, points upward, their finger tracing the path of the raven across the sky. An elder beside them looks up as well, but then looks away, as if understanding that not all things are meant to be spoken aloud. Sometimes the understanding is enough simply to be felt, quietly in the bones. The wisdom of the elder is in the knowing that some things must remain unsaid. And so the emotional arc moves from curiosity to wonder and then into a tender unease. What if the omens the ravens carry are not warnings or prophecies of what is to come, but simply mirrors of what we already carry within us? What if the messages they bring are not new, but reflections of our own hearts, our own thoughts, our own fears? Perhaps the raven does not bring something unknown, but instead reminds us of what we already know, what we have already carried with us, hidden in the spaces between breaths, in the quiet moments of solitude. The Viking stands still for a moment, watching as the ravens begin to disappear into the growing darkness. Their flight is slow, deliberate, and in their disappearance, they take with them the unspoken answers to the questions that have lingered in the air. The silence that follows their departure is deep and full, like the night itself, as if the world is holding its breath once again, waiting for something that is never fully named. In the final reflection, the Viking turns away, his steps quiet on the earth as he continues his journey home. The village is peaceful now, the sound of the raven's wings replaced by the stillness of the evening. The air is cool, the sky now fully dark, and the world holds its mysteries close as it always has. Perhaps, the Viking thinks, the day is not only lived but witnessed. Perhaps it is not only the people who walk this earth, but the sky itself, the memory of those who have come before, the quiet gods who hide in plain sight, waiting for us to look up, to listen. The ravens, as they disappear into the twilight, are a reminder of that, of the silence that holds meaning, of the memory that lingers long after the day has passed. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Night arrives like a slow exhale, spreading across the earth, soft and quiet. The horizon deepens into shadows, and the sky above fades from dusky blue to the tender black of evening. In this hush, the longhouse stands as a small world of light, a beacon against the encroaching dark. Inside, warmth gathers like a blessing, rising from the hearth and filling the space with the promise of safety, of belonging. At the doorway, the entrance to this refuge, stands the post, a simple yet sacred thing. Carved into its wood are wolves, their forms etched with care, their eyes seeming to flicker with the faint glow of the fire within. In the flickering dance of light, their eyes seem half alive, watchful, vigilant, as if they see not only those who cross the threshold, but the unseen spaces that lie between the worlds of the living and the spirits. Their gaze holds a kind of ancient wisdom, as though they have stood here for countless seasons, witnessing the ebb and flow of time, guarding the gateway between night and hearth. The question arises, soft as wool carried on the quiet air. What crosses a threshold besides the body? What follows in? What stays outside? The answer is not clear, for the threshold is not only a space for the body, it is a place where more enters, more than can be seen. What follows behind the traveler who crosses the door is a silent presence, memories, stories, hopes and fears. The doorway is a place of passage, but not just for the flesh. It is the passage of something unseen, the weight of the past, the feeling of home, the whisper of something sacred, something shared. We step into the longhouse with our Viking. The moment the door closes behind us, we are enveloped in warmth, a warmth that feels both physical and spiritual. It wraps around us like a quiet prayer. Faces glow in amber light, illuminated by the soft flicker of the hearth. The air carries the sense of smoke, of broth simmering, of life, of a place where people have gathered for generations. There is a quiet murmur of voices, a calm rhythm to the evening, as though the house itself breathes along with its inhabitants. The wolves at the doorway seem to stand a little further away now, watching over this space, holding the boundary between the outside world and the refuge within. They are not just carved symbols, they are guardians, ancient keepers of the space between the night that waits just beyond the door and the hearth that gathers all within. The door itself is not merely an entryway, it is a boundary, a sacred line that is crossed with reverence. We explore the sacred undertone of this moment, a home not simply built of wood and stone, but protected by symbol, by story, by a shared understanding. The longhouse is not just a shelter, it is a vessel, holding both warmth and memory. It is protected by the wolves that guard the entrance, by the smoke that rises from the hearth, by the shared belief that within this place is refuge. It is a place where time is measured by the passing of seasons and the coming of those who cross the threshold, where faces are recognized, where the weight of the outside world can be set down for a time. And yet, a gentle contradiction lingers in the air. This same doorway that welcomes faces familiar and new has also welcomed sorrow and absence, has witnessed departures as well as arrivals. The same threshold that opens to greet those who return is the one that will eventually see them go again, into the dark, into the unknown. This space, so full of life and warmth, is also a space marked by the impermanence of all things. On the beams overhead, older shapes remain, signs of past belief, of old rituals, of those who lived here before and left their mark in the form of carvings, of symbols, of things half remembered. These older markings are not replaced by newer ones, but layered over, like veils of meaning that add depth, that enrich the space with the weight of memory. New symbols appear beside old ones, and the two exist in harmony, not as replacements, but as complements, as a living testament to the passage of time. The space is marked not only by the hands that shaped it, but by the hands that will continue to shape it, those who live and those who have long since gone. The pace of the evening is slow, meditative, as though the world outside has stopped in respect for the quiet inside. The Viking moves through this space with a quiet reverence, setting down his cloak, offering a bowl of food to another, lifting a child with a soft touch, soothing them with a quiet word. There is no rush in his movements, only the slow, steady rhythm of home, of belonging. Each gesture is a sacred act, each exchange a silent prayer of gratitude for the safety found within these walls, for the warmth that gathers like a blanket around the family. And as the evening deepens, the emotional arc moves gently from curiosity into comfort, and then, as the firelight flickers, into a mild melancholy, a knowing that just as every door is crossed, so too will every door be left behind. There is a soft recognition in this, the understanding that the warmth of the hearth is not eternal, that the people who gather here will not always be here. This home, this longhouse, is a place where memory is made, but memory is also a thing of passing, a thing that will eventually leave, just as the night outside will eventually swallow the light of the hearth. The chapter's final reflection settles in quietly as the door closes once more. The wolves at the threshold standing watch in the deepening dark. Their carved eyes remain, as ever, half alive, guarding the space between the world within and the world without. They have seen it all: laughter, grief, arrival, departure. They hold the memory of every threshold crossed, every step taken within and without. And in their silence, they ask us to consider: perhaps the strongest magic is not in the symbols we carve, but in the simple act of crossing into warmth, of being welcomed without question. Perhaps, in the end, it is the shared crossing of thresholds that binds us all. Each person who passes through the door is not just crossing from one space to another, but is being witnessed, welcomed, and remembered. The chapter fades into sacred uncertainty. The door is closed, the longhouse is quiet. The wolves remain, standing guard, their silent watch extending into the night. Perhaps what lies outside the door is less important than what is carried within. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Deep night settles, its weight like a soft blanket draped over the world. The longhouse, a simple refuge against the infinite dark, becomes a chamber of story, a place where the very air seems to hold the echoes of lives lived and moments past. Within this stillness there is a quiet warmth that draws the heart in, like the pull of the ocean, deep and inevitable. The fire crackles softly in the hearth, casting long shadows that dance across the walls. It is here, in this hushed, sacred space, that the opening image takes form. A voice, low and steady, threading through the silence like smoke, curling upward, carrying its weight in every word. The question, soft and unhurried, rises from the depths of the night, drifting on the air. What songs were meant not to excite the heart, but to quiet it? It is a question wrapped in reverence, a question that knows the answer lies not in sound, but in silence, in the way a song can still the restless mind and calm the trembling hands, in the way it can cradle fear and sorrow without rushing to banish them. We linger for a while on the calm ritual of evening, the small, deliberate acts that bring the day to its close. Bowls are scraped clean, the remnants of the evening meal caught in the flickering firelight. Hands are washed in the quiet of the space, water running like the smooth flow of time. Bodies, once taut with the rhythm of labor, begin to ease toward rest, and the tension in the air begins to fade. It is a moment of stillness, a quiet preparation for the sleep that will come. And then, as if the longhouse itself is breathing, a song begins. It is soft at first, a murmur that rises like a wave, low and steady. The voice weaves through the space, threading through the hush of the room, filling it without overwhelming it. This is no loud song of celebration or victory. No, this is a song that speaks of the sea, the great unknowable expanse, but in a way that does not summon it too loudly. The sea is named, but it is not commanded. The song does not call it to rise or rage. It only speaks of it as one might speak of a distant friend, a force beyond human reach. This is the lullaby of the whale road, the path that the great sea creatures travel across the ocean's vast surface, where memory and myth intertwine. The song is part memory, part spell, a way of carrying the fear of the sea, the unspoken terror of what lies beyond the horizon without making it too heavy to bear. The voice rises and falls like the breath of the sea itself, steady, rhythmic, a vessel for the stories of old. It is said that the sound of the sea can be both calming and unsettling, that the song is not meant to stir the heart, but to soothe it. We explore the sacred context of word and rhythm, how poetry, melody, and memory can act as a vessel. In a world where the sea can be both a lifeline and a threat, where the waves that carry life can also drown it, the song becomes a way to carry fear gently, to hold it like a fragile thing, to set it down without shame. There is no grand gesture here, no call to arms, no desperate cry. The song wraps itself around the fear, cradles it, and sets it gently on the shore, where it can rest until it is needed again. A quiet contradiction hums beneath the lullaby, an understanding that the same mouths that sing of waves and the sea have also sung of raids, of the blood-stained shores where history was made in the hardest of ways. Yet here, in this moment, the tone is tender. The same voices that have spoken harsh truths now sing with a softness that seems to embrace even the darkest parts of the past. Even the histories of hardship and loss are wrapped in gentleness, as if they too need to be held with care in the quiet dark. There is wisdom in this tenderness, a knowing that even the fiercest memories must sometimes be softened in order to bear them. The visuals unfold slowly, with the same grace that the song brings. The light of the fire flickers on the faces around the hearth, their features softened by the dance of shadows, the movement slow and measured, as though time itself is winding down. The shadows stretch like old sails, filling the space with a quiet, sacred weight. The air is thick with the murmurs of those present, their breaths rising and falling in harmony with the rhythm of the song. In this moment, there is no rush. The world outside is distant, unreachable, and all that matters is the warmth of the room, the steady heartbeat of the fire, and the lullaby that rises and falls like the tide itself. The emotional arc drifts gently from curiosity into wonder. The song, though simple as it is, holds a quiet magic. The words, though ancient, feel as if they are being spoken for the first time, as though they have just been discovered in the quiet spaces between breaths. There is a tenderness in the air now, a calm melancholy settling like a weight, as if the song has opened something within, a space where all the unspoken fears, all the untold stories, rest just beneath the surface. The song carries us gently toward a place of rest, toward a place where the mind can let go, where the heart can settle, and where even the deepest sorrows can be softened by the melody. But as all songs must, this one too begins to fade. The final note lingers in the air, a soft echo that dissolves into the night, the last vestiges of its warmth slipping away like the final rays of the setting sun. The fire, once blazing with energy, now settles into embers, the quiet crackle of wood burning, slowly fading into silence. And so, in the final reflection, the song is no longer heard, and the fire no longer roars. All that remains is the soft silence that follows, thick and deep like the sea itself. The world outside has receded into the night, and within this sacred space there is only quiet, quiet and the soft promise of sleep. Perhaps, the Viking thinks, the sea lives inside the dream, and the song is the oar that rocks the mind toward rest. Perhaps the song itself is a bridge between waking and sleeping, a gentle crossing from the world of labor to the world of dreams. And as the longhouse breathes softly in the dark, the last note of the song dissolves into the air, leaving only the warmth of the fire and the quiet certainty that in this moment all is well. Perhaps the strongest magic is not in the song itself, but in the act of listening, of being rocked gently by the waves of sound, and of surrendering into the quiet embrace of the night. The day closes not with action, but with drifting. The sky is turning soft and gray, the light of the fading sun slipping away like a secret shared only with the earth. As the world breathes out its last breath of warmth, the air feels full with the promise of night. The day's work is over, and all that remains is the slow, quiet settling of everything that was once in motion. The land itself seems to pause, held in the half-light of dusk, waiting for the pull of darkness to close the distance between the living and the dead. The opening image arrives, not in a flash, but in the quiet spaces between breaths. A burial mound, low and humble, its shape barely visible in the soft light of the evening. It rises from the earth like an ancient memory, covered in grass that moves slowly in the wind, as if the ground itself is breathing. Beneath it, buried deep, is an old ship, a vessel shaped to carry its passenger across the vast ocean, its hull now consumed by the earth, its purpose set aside, like a story whose end we cannot remember. The mound is silent, but it speaks in whispers, telling us of journeys that have ended and of those still unfinished. And in the stillness of this moment, the question drifts gently as sleep approaches. Where did the journeys go when the traveler is gone? It is a question that does not demand an answer, but invites reflection. It is a question that hangs between waking and sleeping, where the boundaries of what we know and what we cannot understand blur like smoke. Perhaps the journey does not end at all. Perhaps it simply shifts, turning, like the earth itself, into something else. This chapter, then, is framed not by action, but by reverence, a quiet reverence for the spaces where time bends and memory lingers. We follow the Viking, now lying near the hearth, the fire's soft glow flickering over his resting form. The wind whispers outside, faint and distant, like the sound of surf far away, like a song from a world beyond the living. The Viking, weary from the day's tasks, listens to the wind, letting it carry him closer to a place where sleep and memory merge. Memory and myth mingle softly, like the wind that brushes past the firelight. In the Viking's half-dreaming mind, the mound takes shape. A burial place, yes, but also a vessel. Beneath the earth, beneath the soil and the stone, lies a ship meant not for the ocean, but for a journey beyond the veil, a journey into the great unknown. The ship is not forgotten, though it is hidden from sight. It is held by the earth, by the stars, by the sky that stretches overhead. There, buried under the mound, it waits for its next voyage, just as the Viking waits for sleep, for the crossing from this world into the next. But we do not linger in spectacle. We do not rush toward answers. Instead, we move gently, reverently, as if walking on quiet toes through sacred ground. The land itself feels sacred, every step taken with the utmost care. This is not a place for grand gestures or loud voices. It is a place for quiet reflection, for surrendering into the mystery that remains, for acknowledging that some truths do not need to be uncovered to be understood. The mystery is gentle, but it runs deep. Were these ship burials maps for the dead, ways of guiding the traveler into the next world? Or were they medicine for the living, ways to make loss feel like a passage instead of an ending? Perhaps the ship buried in the earth was not a marker of death at all, but a means of making peace with it, of creating a ritual that could carry grief, that could carry memory, without allowing it to overwhelm. The ship, with its wooden ribs and timbers, was not just a vessel. It was a story, a belief, a way of living with loss. And as it was buried in the earth, it carried with it the memories of those who lived and died before. A contradiction drifts softly through the air, like snow falling unnoticed. Why would people place wealth in darkness? Why would they lay down their weapons, their beauty, their treasures, only to have them hidden from view, buried in the earth where no eyes could admire them? It is an offering, perhaps, not to the living, but to the unseen world. It is an act of faith, a belief that even when something is hidden, it still carries meaning. It is a gesture of humility, a way of acknowledging that no matter how much one has, it is not for us to keep forever. Even wealth, even beauty, can be given away, placed in the earth as a promise that what we have, we do not own. As the Viking lies near the hearth, the firelight softening his features, the emotional arc slowly moves from curiosity into wonder. The fire flickers, and with it, the shadows dance across the walls, like the movement of memory itself, shifting, subtle, and hard to hold on to. There is a tender melancholy that begins to settle in the chest, like the weight of an old memory, a story half remembered. For just as the day fades into night, so too do the journeys of the dead fade into the unknown. Perhaps the ship will never sail again. Perhaps the traveler will never return. But the names that were once spoken aloud, still linger in the dark, moving through us like quiet stars. The song of the fire, the whisper of the wind, and the gentle rise and fall of breath. The Viking knows, as he drifts closer to sleep, that some things do not need to be proven. Some things do not need to be understood. Perhaps the journey does not end with death. Perhaps it continues, quietly, unseen, like the stars that guide the living home. The final reflection settles softly into the night. The mound remains in dream distance, a quiet presence, patient as stone, holding the secrets of the past. The ship buried beneath the earth is not lost, but preserved, waiting perhaps for the time when it will rise again, or perhaps it will remain, always hidden, always waiting, like the dreams that come in the quiet of the night. The last embers of the fire fade into darkness, and with them the last note of the Viking's breath. The wind outside whispers its eternal song. The chapter ends in sacred uncertainty, for perhaps the dead do not sail anywhere at all, and yet, somehow, their names still move through us, guiding us like quiet stars, lighting the way for the living as they cross into the world of dreams. And so, the day comes to an end. The long ship rests once more along the shore. The tools are set aside, and firelight dances across wooden walls. The Viking world grows quiet, not with silence, but with the steady comfort of rest after a long day lived close to sea and sky. As sleep begins to take hold, let these ancient rhythms fade softly into your dreams, carrying with them the echoes of wind, water, and distant horizons. Thank you for spending this moment in time with Twilight Tale. Until our next story, may your nights be peaceful and your dreams gently guided by history. Good night.